Hello, everybody, and welcome to our seminar today. We are going to be talking about finding and keeping the best underwriting talent. My name's Tony Tarquini, and I'm going to be moderating the webinar today with a great panel. I know you're going to enjoy listening to what they've got to say. So what are we going to be discussing? First of all, the acceleration of technology and the application of AI and the increased prevalence of digital underwriting is inevitably going to lead to a shift in the skills needed to be an underwriter. This is part of probably a wider cultural shift on how we think about and transact insurance. But it doesn't mean that we're no longer going to require the valuable technical expertise and the specialist knowledge and in fact the gut feel that underwriters already bring to the role. So it would rather mean that their experience will be augmented with future-focused and sustainable skills, such as things like data literacy and digital fluency and agility. So it's going to put the customers at the heart of product and design thinking. So today we're going to be talking about how you generate those skills within the talent that you're looking for, and how you find that talent in the first place and you keep them over time, particularly in the areas of underwriting. So I've got a team to sit down and discuss this, all of whom are experts in their area. So I'd like to say welcome to our panel and ask you to introduce yourself. Caroline, could I start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Caroline Bedford. I've been a technology and transformation leader in the specialty insurance sector for over 30 years. I'm now the Chief Executive Officer of Eddy. We are an innovation education company, and we specialize in helping underwriters and people of all roles across the insurance industry become future focused.
Thanks, Caroline. Second up is Georgie.
Hello, I'm Georgie Munger. I am head of casualty for middle market in the US for Allianz, and also head of underwriting practices. So a good part of my role involves training and upskilling, recruiting and retaining all of our underwriting staff across the country.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Pat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pat Caldwell. I joined Send as Chief People Officer almost 18 months ago now. You could say I've had a career of two halves, the first in the resources industry in Australia during a major digital transformation in that industry, and the second half within the tech scene across the US and the UK. So everything from financial compliance tooling, cybersecurity, education, and now insurance.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Well, look, we've got a very diverse panel here, so I suspect we're going to get lots of different perspectives on this question. Let's start off with something fairly generic. So at a high level, what do you think are the big issues around how insurers attract and retain underwriting talent? Caroline, can I direct that question to you in the first instance?
Absolutely. What a great question. And there are a myriad of big ticket items, but we've only got 30 minutes. So I think I'll pick two to start with. And I'd say there are the personal and the practical. So when we're looking at personal, the best talent are quite rightly in demand. And they're going to be able to demand the best packages, the best flexibility, the best benefits, etc. Of course. So as an insurer, to attract those, let's take as an example the specialty insurer Convex. They've recently been in the news for really focusing on the type of benefits that will attract those types of candidate. For example, increasing their paid paternity leave and family leave from 8 weeks to 6 months. So 6 months full pay for any underwriter, anybody who is looking for that kind of environment. So in terms of attracting the best talent, if that's something that's really important to you, then that's going to make that type of insurer one of the tops of your list. But I would say, secondly, on the practical side, the skills and the competencies of underwriters, as you've touched on, Tony, they're rapidly evolving. And I think that we can see that by the time a job description has even been drafted and approved and potentially published, it's likely to already be out of date. So in our community, we know that the best underwriting talent want to ensure that they're joining a company that's future focused, that's using the latest technology, that's working with the best partners, and is able to provide all the tools and techniques that they're going to need. Therefore, to ensure that you can compete to attract that talent, you have to be able to demonstrate that not only are you as an organization prioritizing the right projects, partnerships, and transformation, but you are also prioritizing the continued development of the underwriters that you want to bring on board so they can continue to stay at the top of their game.
Okay, so giving the right incentives and the right packages and the right skill sets for people to join the industry. Georgie, can I ask you to chip in from your perspective? And I'll just interject 1 second and say, I have 3 sons. The middle one is an underwriter. When I asked him what he was going to do when he came out of university, and suggested that he might do rather well in insurance, he classically said, I would rather stick needles in my eyes than work in something as boring as insurance, right? So we have a reputational problem, a profile problem within our industry. How do we overcome that sort of thing? And what's your perspective on what Caroline?
So I'll start with not answering your question, Tony, but I also have 3 children, and all 3 children, well, I should start with my husband is a broker. So in the exact same industry, the same kind of market space as I am. I've always been on the carrier side. He's always been on the broker side. All 3 kids, never. And suddenly we're all working from home during COVID, and the kids are like, Mom, Dad, your jobs actually are pretty interesting, because they would get to witness more of what my day-to-day was like. And so flash forward to today, my eldest is now a financial lines underwriter in New York City. My middle guy is now a broker in Florida working on marine business. And the youngest is still holding on to the never. But so I've seen the whole gamut of that personally. As far as, us in attracting young staff, early career underwriters to the company, that's actually been the easy part. We started 3 years ago. We created an associate graduate program and really built a robust full year where, day one on the job, we bring them into New York City. They all went on a big business trip with a corporate card to the big city and brought them all together. We had a class of about 20 and, told them that they're being paid to learn for a whole year. There's no expectation of productivity. There's no expectation of anything but, anything that crosses your desk. Do not let it move your desk until you fully understand. And, it's a different perspective for them coming out of university to understand that it's on them to ask the questions. Nobody's going to say to them, do you understand, before you put that file away. It's on you to do that. And so, it's been an interesting 3 classes now. We were in our 3rd class of associate grads coming through, and, our retention has been excellent. But we've had to work really hard on it. That full first year, it's a lot of heavy lifting for our late career underwriting staff. It's a lot of heavy lifting for people who are tasked with keeping their training on top, on par, whether it's the technical training or the soft skills or just the business acumen part of the job. So, again, the recruiting part has been easy, but it's the executing and the getting them to the point where after the first year and certainly the 2nd and 3rd years that they are moving up to the underwriting specialist skill sets.
Okay, so that's interesting. So it's not the attracting the talent in, it's about how you retain them and get them to stay. So I've read several reports about the loss of many jobs in insurance, particularly in underwriting, both in Europe and North America. So are we at a huge inflection point, or is it all being overstated? Pat, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a bit of both. I think we're clearly at an inflection point within the industry. I know one of the reports we were sharing between us mentioned, I think, around 400,000 insurance professionals who are estimated to leave the industry in the US by 2026. And it took me a few goes looking at the calendar to read that again and say, hey, that's like just over 18 months away. which means technically that inflection point has already started, and it must have been for some time. So there's these huge pockets of institutional knowledge and know-how within professionals who've built up that knowledge over decades of work experience, who are now approaching retirement. At the same time, we're seeing this acceleration of tech adoption and tooling and ways of working. So I don't think these challenges are overstated, but I do think we should ground them with a little bit of perspective. So the first thing about like the aging workforce, the skills leaving industries, that's not specific to insurance. We've got the same challenges in manufacturing, construction. I think the education industries are going through the same thing. That doesn't make it easier for us to address that, and every industry will obviously have its own nuance, but it does help us to be able to learn from, look outside the insurance industry, heck, even partner with outside of insurance industry organizations when we start to think about how we might do things like the early careers programs, career change programs, retention strategies. Our kind of lens of focus can actually be quite broader than that, given it's not just affecting us. I think that the second thing that comes to mind with that is the lens in which we want to look at it. We can't be passengers to industry-wide shifts like these, but I suspect that the companies that will do really well on this front and the ones that will excel over the next decade are the ones that see 400,000 people leaving a profession, this new wave of talent coming in, the changes to technology. I suspect they'll be the ones who see that as an opportunity rather than a line item in their risk spreadsheet that they've got to now mitigate. So tactically speaking, it starts with very small day-to-day things like understanding where people who might be approaching retirement are, what their plans are, their unique skills and talents, and maybe even getting them involved in the succession process a lot earlier than what we might have been. And then at a more strategic level, and we've seen this across a lot of industries over the last decade, looking at the skills makeup of our teams, the roles. The shape of roles will probably change over the next decade. I liked, Caroline, your point around how job descriptions might need to be already out of date once they're written and approved. And I think when we blend that, if they even exist, that technical underwriting skill set mixed with this kind of new age of technology is going to mean our skills makeup in our team starts to look fundamentally different. So I think there's this massive opportunity in this space now, which is overstating it as a risk, but I think understating it as an opportunity for us to be able to learn from this, grow with it, invest in new skills early, and in a decade's time, be the case study that the industries at that time going through the same thing can talk to.
Okay, so given all of that, and the fact that as technology institutionalizes knowledge into their systems, knowledge and process into their systems, and at the same time insurers are reducing their really deep training programs, is there a widening gap between the fresh graduates coming into underwriting and the older, more experienced underwriters, and that gap creating an issue for the industry? Georgie, what do you think about that?
It's our biggest challenge, for sure. There is a big gap. We have deep expertise, decades of underwriting experience, and just acumen of being able to juggle a full underwriting desk in their heads, and the fresh grads coming in having to learn everything from the ground up. And part of it depends on the infrastructure and the real estate footprint of the company. For us, we have it's about 70% of our underwriters are fully remote. 0 of our associate grads are remote. So the number of associate grads paired up with an experienced underwriter who actually come to the same office is the challenge. Most of our most experienced underwriters are now full-time remote, and they have been pre-COVID. And we need our associate grads to come into they sit in the desks in the cities. So there's that middle ground doesn't really they don't overlap in their day to day. So like my team, I have 14 people on my direct team. 2 of us are in the New York City office. At the same time, I've got 5 associate grads sitting on the floor with us, and no no actual underwriters that they work with day to day who are in the office every day. So the challenge of the, a lot of the learning, it can't just all be textbook. There's a lot of assimilation. There's a lot of just day-to-day experience and listening to conversations and the deal making and the negotiations between underwriting and broking. And that's the part that they're missing the most. And that's our biggest challenge, to fill that gap.
So that's interesting, Georgie, because mentioning my son again, he was an underwriter at Lloyd's of London, where they all sit in one building. All the underwriters are together. He literally was sitting with his team at the box at Lloyd's, and they're hearing the conversations that their peers and the superiors are having with other brokers, and they pick these things up as they go along, simply by hearing and seeing and experiencing what gets done. For other organisations, that's not an easier thing to do. So what responsibility do established underwriters have in opening up their black books, teaching soft skills, and doing succession planning in amongst their team to make sure that, as an organisation, that they've got the ability to continue going forward in the same way? What do you think about that, Georgie?
It's very important, and in fact, we've to Caroline's point, we've actually put that in some people's job descriptions, is that they're responsible for that mentoring and training. But the challenge is, we've got better technology, right? It's a lot easier for us to meet with our brokers without being in person. But the moment I dial into a call with an associate grad who should be leading the conversation, the brokers shift their attention to me. They don't want to hear the associate grad talk anymore. They want me to answer the question. So I can't really, quietly observe as much as we used to be able to do when everybody was in the same place. So the technology's helped, but it's also hurt.
Can I just jump in there as well?
Yeah.
One of the things that technology like artificial intelligence is doing is democratizing some of this knowledge. Now, clearly, human skills, emotional intelligence, transference face-to-face in relationships are indispensable, absolutely. But we now have really great language models that can be specific to your organization, that can share knowledge with graduates, with people who are building experience. So they can ask about policy coverages, they can ask about excesses, they can ask about terminology and have a semantically relevant response in a way that would have been really hard for us to get in the past. Not only is artificial intelligence technology able to provide some of that knowledge as a basis for us, but also the type of insurance models that we are providing now for our customers are evolving significantly, so that some of those more experienced underwriters may not even be familiar with parametric, with embedded, with usage-based. So we've got an opportunity now where we're attracting that analytical talent who are data natives coming into the market to allow them to help us shape that from scratch. So the lack of empirical knowledge from those who might be 50, 60 should be less of a disadvantage.
Okay. So Pat, from a technologist point of view, what's your thoughts about that?
I completely agree that AI can certainly support some of our learning around that. I think the change curve that's becoming evident for people is how we as individuals start to view AI and its impact on the workplace. Mm-hmm. So it's a change curve we're going to have to take a lot of people through, for telling someone that being able to get access to different knowledge and skills through AI tools is one thing, but having them feel like it's supporting their role and not threatening it can actually be another thing. So I think there's probably there's a change curve we're going to have to go through, which we will do anyway over the next decade, like all previous technology and innovations have kind of proven that. But I think the key for this one will be, as Caroline said, as we start to introduce this to kind of supplement people's learning and help that journey along the line, for those tools to be seen as helping people do their job better, not necessarily taking that work away from them or impacting their sense of security as well.
Okay, and just is there a question here of how different generations learn? Gen X and Gen Zs will assimilate knowledge in a different way, and is that an important part of the technologists' responsibility to create a learning environment which they can absorb more easily?
There are patterns that exist within the research into generations around how information is consumed, around how people learn, around some of the attitudes towards learning. Even broader than that, though, I think that being able to learn and absorb knowledge is so fundamentally individual, and people's learning styles are quite individual. So I think it could actually be more of a distraction that we start to cluster up different generations as learning in a certain way, rather than thinking about, okay, if I'm managing this for my team of 14, or if I've got 5 grads who are coming in, there probably needs to be some very individual discussions around how people are likely to going to take on information, the idea of them running before they can walk. What are some goals that they can hit to build up confidence? And that's a very, very individual thing. So I think while there are patterns that exist in the research, I think I'd probably almost steer away from
age-related.
The age-related one, mostly because learning needs and styles are so diverse naturally that it has to be an individual level.
Yeah, and I'd like just to pick up on that. In terms of the skill set, we're very familiar with the vertical skill set, the vertical career path from the traditional insurance organizational structure. That is changing. And we are now seeing those horizontal skills like critical thinking, problem solving, data fluency, data literacy are becoming more and more part of the underwriters network. In fact, in the UK, the insurance body, the Chartered Insurance Institute, have been well known for creating those insurance qualifications that underwriters have trudged through in order to, earn their stripes. They have just launched something called the Professional Map, which is those additional behaviours and competencies that they are considered necessary for insurance excellence going forward. And those are all of those future focus skills that we've been discussing.
So just tell us about the skills that underwriters, both the experienced ones and the newcomers to underwriting, are going to need to succeed in the new world order of being bionic underwriters. And also what companies doing to foster those skills to make sure that they've got them and they can be successful.
I'll pick up on that. I can't help but think of bionic and not think of Steve Austin and the $6 Million Man of that age group. But what was that? What was that? Machine, man and machine. Increased strength, speed, vision. Those are all the same sort of things, aren't they? And that's what I think we need to combine, because it's the age of digital acceleration is absolutely here. So when we're attracting underwriters, or we're retaining underwriters, and in the London market, 80% of our staff, of our 50,000 staff, are over the age of 30 and, going to be here for quite some time. But when we're retaining, we need to furnish those people with those kind of learning agility. We need to be able to understand how artificial intelligence what does AI do? It spots patterns, it themes, it processes very quickly. So those are the sort of things that can augment the underwriting process. But humans need to make those decisions. So we need critical thinking, we need innovation, we need creativity and problem solving to complement those insurance specialisms.
Okay. Georgie, Pat, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's interesting. When we're recruiting our associate grads, we're not looking to build clones of our late career underwriters. Right? The world is changing.
That's a really good statement.
Yeah, but what we do at the same time, which is maybe, I often have internal I'll call them arguments with some of the hiring managers of our associate grads. I don't want to hire all risk management majors out of certain insurance schools. I also want a history major. I want an English major. I want a chemistry major, because when you bring those diversified educational skill sets into a group and have them work together and learn from each other, I think that's a better outcome. And we've had such dynamic groups of people. You know, I was talking to two associate grads last week, and they said, you know, before they went through this program, they're coming up on their year mark, so they're reflecting. They said they never would have, you know, associated with or become best friends with some of the people in their group, because they just came from such different backgrounds. I mean, you have some, you know, from very small liberal arts schools in the Northeast, and some from gigantic universities in the South, and all of these different people coming from all over the country into New York City for a year. It's been fun to watch them grow and realize that they bring their own unique skill sets to the team. And we do have some, you know, mid and late career people who lean on them to help them through, you know, some technology and things. You know, we've got some late career people who break pivot tables every time they try to use them. And, you know, you've got the associate grads helping them with that and helping them with their PowerPoints and things like that. So that's, I think, what's helped with our retention for the younger group coming in is they feel unique and valued from the day they come in. And, you know, and then it's just our jobs of the older part, you know, group of people in the team is to keep them learning in the technical side and building their business acumen along the way.
I'm really pleased that you said that, Georgie, because it just happens that I have some statistics to hand here, completely by fluke. Just talking about diversity and the ability to think in a critical way. McKinsey did a study on success rates on doing tasks, and their bald statistics came up that when individuals were asked to solve tasks individually, they were 44% of the time they were successful. When you got homogenous groups together, the clones, as you quite rightly described them, those homogenous groups succeeded 54% of the time, so groups better than individuals. But where you had diverse groups thinking in diverse ways, their success rate went up to 75%. So that backs up exactly what you've been saying there, that we don't want clones who are just going to underwrite the same way all the time. It's being able to use it. And I guess technologies like AI provide the data and insight that they can use in order to think that way. Okay, well, look, we've only got a few minutes left. So I always like to end our conversations by saying, you know, if the audience, somebody in the audience sees you in the street in a couple of weeks' time and says, I saw you on the webinar, I thought you were great. And you ask them, so what do you remember? What are the key takeaways you had from it? What would you like that thing to be? What's the one big thing that you would like them to take away from today's session? Georgie, if I can start with you.
I think, you know, I think the biggest thing for me that I focus on every day and is that we have to keep evolving how we do what we do. Part of that is, you know, the recruiting is one thing, but the retention and the training and the upskilling of our staff is the hard part, right? To retain our mid and late career underwriters, which, you know, with the number of people leaving the industry, we just have to. It's crucial. So we're trying to be as flexible and friendly to what they need and what their priorities are at the same time that we're upskilling our early career people, so that we're treading that balance and doing that successfully is the most important thing for us right now.
Fantastic. Pat, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'll build on top of what Georgie said. It's something I shared earlier. I think the winners in this space over the next 10 years, the companies that truly excel, will be those who have exactly the mindset that Georgie described, taking this as an opportunity to rethink practices, evolve how we work, be critical on the skills that we need, upgrade our retention policies, think about how to bring in more diverse skill sets into the business. Those for me are the companies who I think will truly excel. There's an opportunity in this as much as it feels like a threat.
Thank you. Caroline. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. To echo that to attract talent, to retain talent, if you are the best talent, you want to be making sure that you're working for a company that is future focused, that is digitally savvy, that has the right partnerships and the right tools for you. So if you are working for that company, make sure that if you're investing in them, they are investing in you and your professional development.
Fantastic. Well, I think, those are all extremely important things to do. One thing I would ask everybody in this industry to do is, when you're sitting talking to somebody about the insurance industry and they say, oh, how boring, just tell them how exciting it is to work in insurance, because it is. And some of the more exciting things that they might be able to do to make it attractive for people to even think about working in the industry. Well, look, we've run out of time. Thank you very much indeed for all your contributions to today's session. I would just remind the audience that this is a monthly event that we put on. Our next session is going to be on the 12th of June, when we're going to be talking about partnerships. It just remains for me to say thank you to our panel. Thank you for our audience for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you in a month's time. Thank you.